Welcome, travelers. Thank you for staying with us here at the OKKO'S Inn. Our staff of elementary schools have prepared the master bedroom for your weekend visit. In order to ensure the best experience, we just need you to sign this disclaimer. The OKKO'S Inn may contain words and topics that are not suitable for child guests. Parental discretion is advised. Also, there will definitely be spoilers for OKKO'S Inn and any other anime being discussed. Be forewarned in case something you haven't finished is brought up. The opinions expressed here are those in the individual host and do not necessarily reflect the OKKO'S Inn as a whole. And as a final heads up, if you happen to see any spirits wandering around the inn, just give them some snacks, and they'll grant you good luck for the rest of your stay. You weren't gonna eat those cakes anyway, were you? Well, that takes care of everything. Your luggage has been taken to your room. Dinner will be served soon. Please have the best time ever.
Hello, Master, and welcome back to the OKKO'S Inn, the specialized inn hidden deep in the woods where we bring you fresh fish from the ocean, vegetables foraged from the gardens, and spirits bug you all day and night. In fact, if you listen very carefully, you can hear the sound of bearded music guy and Memphis sign makers haunting you in your dreams. Listen carefully.
I'm going to explain what a stylophone is to you.
I'm going to steal all the beer from your fridge.
No! Wait, let me check. Hold on a second. Oh, it's all White Claw. Alright, you can have that.
Oh, God, no.
Even ghosts have their standards. Also, what exactly is a stylophone, Amon?
It's basically like a really tiny portable synthesizer that you play with a stylus. They're invented in the 60s.
Is that like... I was going to ask, that sounds like it was an instrument that predates the synth craze of the 80s.
Yes. To give you an idea of who cares about this kind of thing, I was introduced to it because They Might Be Giants sometimes pulls one out.
Of course they would. They sound like the kind of guys who would pull retro 60s non-theremin instruments out.
Absolutely.
So, as you can tell, ladies and gentlemen, this is a special 3-man episode of Dub Talk. And today we have a special Patreon request. Woohoo! And so, for our special Patreon episode, this is an episode that we record once in a while to part of the Dub Talk Patreon raffle. Those are wonderful patrons. One of them will get to select an episode for us to record. So before we list who it was, I'd like to give a big shout out to the awesome members who make up the Dub Talk Patreon. For our $5 patrons, I want to give a big thank you to Nico Robin, but with Yowie hands, the miraculous Corazon, Crimson Echidna, B. Morris, and Michelle Travis. And for our extra special thanks to our $10 patrons, we'd like to give a big thanks to Spartacus, Marissa Lenti, J2, also known as Jared, Jacob Wilson, Carly Lesticow, and the winner of today's episode. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause to Julia W. Clap, 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 clap. Actually, I'm going to do this with my fingers. We're going to do coffee shop style. So, if you would like to be a patron, you know where to go. Click the link below. And what did Julia pick for today's episode? Well, as you can probably tell from reading the description and the fact that we talked about inns at the top of this, we are actually going to be covering a movie today. Yes, not too long ago, Madhouse decided to adapt a series of children's picture books into a movie that got licensed by G-Kids, dubbed by the NYV Post, and now we get to cover it here. This is OKKO'S Inn. Although, it is called OKKO'S Inn, but I gotta be honest, I way prefer the Japanese title for it, which is Waka Okami wa Shokusie, which basically translates to The Young Innkeeper is an elementary school student?
Wow, that's quite a change.
Yeah, they kind of narrowed that down a little bit. I have to imagine...
I'm getting erased flashbacks.
Oh god, I don't even remember what the full title for Erased was. It was it was some really long light novel title, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of a light novel in itself too. But no, it's actually based on, like I said, a series of children's picture books adapted by Madhouse, directed by a guy who has a lot of experience with Studio Ghibli. So if any of you are watching this and thinking, wow, this reminds me of that Miyazaki movie I saw many years ago, there's a reason for that. So, OKKO'S Inn, what exactly is it about? Well, a young girl named Oriko Seki, or Oko for short, is having the time of her life with her mom and dad, visiting the shrine and just going on vacation. Nothing could possibly go wrong in the first 5 minutes. Unfortunately, things do go wrong, and unfortunately, her mom and dad are killed in a car accident, leaving her in the care of her grandma, Minaki, who owns an inn in the kind of a more old-fashioned style inn. They've only got 5 rooms, they have a very small group of employees, but they also take a lot of pride in being more down-to-earth inn for their guests. And through the course of becoming a member of the inn, she also encounters spirits who she's the only one who can see them. Apparently her brush with death means that she can actually see spirits and other mythical creatures around her. And, well, they help her to basically become the newest innkeeper. And, well, we're going to talk about that little bits of adventure here today. To my right, I would like to welcome the chef of the group, Spaceman Hardy.
Yeah. This has too much salt in it. Take it back.
That doesn't sound like something you'd actually say.
No, it literally is something I have to say. You know, guys, I kind of got high blood pressure, so...
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. So, I did like the way that they explained how to solve that. Just like, it was brush it with salt water and grill it to give it extra flavor.
Over here, I'm thinking, have they never heard of Mrs. Dash?
No, they probably haven't.
I mean, that solves all the problems right there.
What's Mrs. Dash?
It's a blend of herbs and spices that will season your food without salt.
That does sound good, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That is very good.
Yeah, it's for people like me and my dad who have high blood pressure. We can enjoy our food without having to risk, stroke and heart attack.
That is good. That's very good. And also on our staff, we have the housekeeper who loves to wear a kimono. Please welcome Amon Duel.
Hello. You can see the kimono. The kimono's like a foot too short for me. You can just see I'm wearing like sneakers and socks instead of actual sandals. Why don't you wear actual sandals? I have flat feet. It hurts to walk around in them. I can't help it.
Honestly, I could see you as like wearing those old monk shoes, the ones that are like a foot off the ground.
Oh, I would fall over so quickly.
And I am Noah Clue. I guess I get to be the old lady in this group. No. I'm gonna be the troll who steals all the food. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna be.
So it's real life then.
Exactly. I'm so glad you're here, Hardy.
You would pick the most cartoon character in the show.
Absolutely. There's only really one. The rest of them are more on the human side. So yeah, like we said, this is going to be a very distinct episode because not only is it a movie, which is completely standalone, but we're going to be talking about a lot of voice actors that you have probably never heard of before. Like you two guys, did you in preparation for this episode, did anyone really recognize most of the cast?
Not really.
I like a couple where I thought, oh, that name seems familiar, and then when I looked it up, it's like I'm clearly thinking of someone else. It wouldn't be this person.
There is one person that I actually did recognize from other animated products, but the rest of them were completely new to me.
Yeah, at best it was like, oh, I've heard of this thing you've been in, but I've never actually seen it myself.
Yeah, that's the same with me too. It wasn't even that I'd ever heard of their role. It was just I may have heard of the production you're in, though I have never actually sat down to watch it before. So this is the reason for this is because like we said at the top, this is an NYV dub, which is sometimes they'll pull actors and actresses from outside of the regular anime pool. So, you may be used to your LA talent or your Houston or Dallas talent. We're going outside of that. We're pulling from mostly TV and theater people from New York City, or at least the New York area. So if you've all been saying like, oh, man, they cast the same actors over and over again, get ready to have your mind blown, because this inn has a whole cast of people that are brand new to your ears, probably. And so with that, let us dive into this particular production. So to start with, well, I guess we should get the obvious out of the way. Director and writer on this. I mean, it's an NYAV production. It's a movie released by G Kids. So obviously the ADR director has got to be Michael Schneider. Aha! You thought it was going to be Michael Nicholas, didn't you? I got you so good. But no, this is actually, Michael Cinder Nicholas did work as an executive producer on this, but for the actual direction and writing on it, he handed us off to a relative newcomer to the directing and writing scene, Michael Schneider. You've probably seen his directing work in stuff like Fireworks or Maquia, or if you're like Hardy and you just got the DVD release of it, you probably saw him in Promare as the ADR director on that. As I understand, Hardy, you just got that in the mail like today, right?
Yeah, and actually, that's one of the dubs I haven't been able to watch yet. I had to watch in the theater. I had to miss the date for the dub, so I watched it the sub instead. So I'm looking forward to actually finally being able to watch this dub. I've been waiting months for it.
I haven't seen it yet myself. It sounds like fun though. I'll probably watch the streaming version of it. As far as and writing, Michael Schneider is also the writer on this, and he's also, like I said, he's also a little new on the grounds of writing and direction. He's got much more engineering experience, but he does have a couple of other credits. He wrote the dub for Dragon Quest, and he was also the writer on Promare. So I guess we should probably discuss what in the world this movie is and how does it sound, because it is very different from most stuff I'm used to. Tell me what you think, Amon.
I enjoyed this, but this feels very different. I mean, this feels different from a lot of anime as we tend to think of it, especially cover on this show, if only because this feels a lot more grounded. It is appropriate that, you know, this on the animation side, this has Ghibli veterans in it, because that was kind of the closest thing I thought to, like, some of Ghibli's more, not unfantastical, but, like, you know, the parts of Totoro where Totoro's not around, it's just about this family in the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, like the parts of Wolf Children that are just about her, like, living in the backwoods, and there's just people there. And it all feels very much like this could be a regular drama, with no supernatural elements or anything like that. It feels very down to earth. And I thought like tonally, I felt that was a notable That's something the movie I think has, like, even with all the ghosts, a very, like, down-to-earth story about, you know, grief and loss and so on. And I thought the dub captured that really well. Like, the thing that stuck out is a lot of these sounded like real people. Like, there wasn't a lot of affectation or exaggeration, per se. You know, there was a little here and there, but a lot of, you know, this is one of these dubs where I feel like if it was on somewhere, but not where I could, like, see the television, and you asked me, like, hey, do you think this is a cartoon or a live-action thing? I'd probably have to think really hard before coming to a conclusion about that. Because it's like, well, it doesn't sound like a cartoon, necessarily. But that you're asking that suggests it is a cartoon. Who are you, trickster man? What are you trying to pull?
I don't know if I'd say it sounded more like a cartoon, but I do think it did sound different from most of the dubs that you usually come across. It's not nearly as overacted or as exuberant. I think that I wouldn't say it's got an energy to it, but that energy is much more subdued and laid back and just, for the most part, chill. Mainly the times to where it does get to be a little bit more on the overacted side are usually when Oko's interacting with the spirits, or when she's having one of her PTSD freakouts over her parents. And and I think the dub is generally able to go back and forth between those two instances pretty well. I wouldn't say it's a perfect dub. There are a few lines and a few actors that don't really resonate with me, and we'll get to that later. But in general, I think it sounds much more, like Amon said, it takes a more realistic approach. It's not really acting like an anime. It's more of it has more of an actual film sort of sound to it.
See, you say film, and I felt like it was honestly, it felt more like a stage production, like something that would be, you would see performed by your local acting troupe instead, which is also lends itself to being more realistic because it has to be grounded in the setting that the people are living in. And this is, like you said, Amon, it's a less fantastical setting. I mean, there are spirits in there, but it's all rooted in stuff that could actually happen. With the writing side on it, I guess, would you guys also say that it feels faithful to what the Japanese was trying to go for? Like, nothing felt lost in adaptation?
Yeah, I feel like it covered its bases pretty much. I don't know, having not watched the Japanese version, I don't know if there are any puns in there that got mistranslated or anything, but as far as I can tell, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, there's one pun that I don't know, I also didn't get a chance to watch it in Japanese, but there's one part where a character falls off a roof, and she fortunately does not get hurt, and one character says, "Wow, that was a close shave," and then she, in response, says, "I didn't get shaved. See, my hair's still all on my head." I don't know what I'm assuming it was something very similar in Japanese. I don't know what the Japanese word for shave is, but like that's the kind of thing that makes me think that they adapted this as faithfully as you could while still retaining the elements of English that we enjoy listening to.
Yeah, it didn't feel very like punched up at all. It felt. I also did not watch the Japanese. We're bad at this, aren't we?
I mean, I got an excuse, and you guys technically don't have an excuse, but
hey,
I mean,
look,
we'll let that
I
slide.
straight up forgot where I put my copy for about a day and a half, so, you know.
I mean, we're not called Sub Talk. Let's be real here.
Oh no, that's the.
And if we were called Sub Talk, it'd be the sandwiches. We'd have a podcast about eating sandwiches, which that actually sounds like a good idea now that I think about it.
Darn it, Hardy, that was my secret plan I was planning on releasing later on. You and I and a couple others we'll go to Jimmy John's, and then we'll test them out, and then we'll compare them to Subway, and we'll corner the market on Sub Talk. Where was I going with this? But yeah, as far as direction and writing on this, I mean, I guess the big question is, does it sound different to most anime because we know that the cast hasn't done a whole lot of anime work, or is it just because Michael took a different approach to addressing the content?
I think a lot of it might actually does have to deal with the fact that the cast is a I want to say relatively unknown to your average anime dub listener. They're not the voices that we're used to. Even though if you look at a few of them have actually done a surprisingly good amount of anime in older productions.
That's interesting to look at.
Yeah, this feels like a combination of partially the adaptation and just kind of what the movie is in the first place, and also that the acting pool being drawn on is often people who don't necessarily not have VO experience, just not for anime productions. Because there are some people in here who have been in, like, Western cartoons, and clearly have, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, if you commercials made in the New York area feature some of these people or something like that.
Right.
So, like, they have the chops, just not in this particular niche.
Yeah. And I mean, we got to be honest that if you're not living in one of the big cities where anime is being dubbed, then it's just like you could be the greatest actor that there is, the greatest voiceover actor. You're just not going to get cast in those productions.
That's true.
I think there was a behind-the-scenes extra on the Lucky Star DVD where I think it was Michelle Ruff talked about that, how she started out in Chicago and she could get acting work, but she couldn't get voiceover work because they weren't dubbing anything in Chicago, so she had to move to Los Angeles to get that kind of work. Before we move on, were there any negative things that stuck out to you in watching this? Anything that like stuck you as like, not, you guys are seasoned dub talk nitpickers. Do you have any picks to nit?
If there was one thing, it's that some of the child actors were, victims of child acting.
You don't say.
Yeah. But we'll get to that once we address them individually.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Amon, any picks to nit?
Not particularly. Maybe that, but otherwise, like, I thought this felt like the whole production felt like it was just handled really well. I think it was clearly had a level of care put into it of like, okay, we're making a nice, friendly, accessible children's movie. like this is something we can easily give to like parents and so on, and we want to put a to speak from sort of a capitalist marketing standpoint, it's like we want to make our product good. And they all include, and like anyone who's doing this has clearly looked at like how well like Disney did, being like, hey, we have these high quality like family friendly / kids movies. Let's give them generally well put together English dubs, and more people will watch them. And I think anything in that vague style that's come since the mid 2000s has they're aware of that. So it's like, okay, we'll give it a good English language track. Parents will buy it for their children. Everybody wins.
That could also be a reason why they decided to go with the more localized title of OKKO'S INN.
100%. Absolutely. Like,
I mean, your average anime fan sees that title, The Young Innkeeper, as an elementary school student, and you think, oh, that sounds like, light novel and perky and happy. I'll check that out.
That's the title. That's a title they stick with if, like, Sentai picks it up.
Yeah. So, I believe that pretty much covers all the sides on direction and writing. Most of our talk is going to be really devoted to diving into the voice acting because, oh my gosh, this cast is interesting. I love it when we get to do this, though. Like, I love when we get to cover voice actors that we don't normally get to talk about. It gives us something new to cover on this podcast.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, we got a big cast to cover, but, of course, if you're going to start with a Disney-esque my parents died in the beginning of the movie kind of movie, we got to start talking about the parents. And for multiple reasons, we got to talk about them. So Oko's parents are Sakiko Seki and Shoji Seki. And you may think that, well, they died in a car crash. Do they show back up in flashbacks of any kind? No. The film goes to great lengths to show Oko kind of almost delusionally having conversations with them as if they were still alive throughout the course of the movie. And I guess the arc of it is her accepting the fact that they are no longer there and she has to grow up without them. But that means that we get to hear these voice actors throughout the whole course of the movie. It's interesting. So let's see. So Sakiko is voiced by Alison Leigh Rosenfeld, who this is one who you have probably heard in other anime before. If you've been watching any Pokemon, she's in a lot of the recent stuff. Probably one of their most known characters is in the Pokemon XY series. She plays Bonnie. If you've seen Lou Over the Wall, which is a movie that Amon and I got to see in its American premiere and loved very much, she plays Isaki in that movie. And if you're a fan of Disney Channel productions and you've seen Nella the Princess Knight, not the 60s Tezuka film series, but the actual Disney show, she plays the villain Olivia. I haven't seen the show yet, but having read the character description, this is very different from the mom character she plays in this movie. Switching over to the dad side of things, Shoji is voiced by James Weaver Clark. Now, he is less seasoned in the anime sphere, and not too much, though. There is a couple of Pokemon productions in here, like in Pokemon Sun and Moon, he plays Mad Magma. I don't know who that is. Maybe you guys know who that is?
Nope. Don't watch Pokemon.
I see it.
Haven't in many, many years.
Darn it. I see. I got the Pokemon less seasoned people in the crowd. That's okay. I feel better then. I'm in good company. In the Mazinger Z Infinity movie, James plays Takaki, and in the redub of Gundam Seed, he's plays a couple of incidental characters in that one. And fun fact to round out the discussion, James Weaver Clark and Alison Leigh Rosenfeld happen to be married to each other. So we have an actual couple playing a couple in this movie.
Aww.
I know. Is that not adorable or what?
It's extremely
It's kind of like it's like in Matilda where Danny DeVito and Ray Perlman played the couple in that movie too.
Yeah.
Two more disastrous.
Yeah. Is it just me, or does the mom kind of look like she came straight out of a Leiji Matsumoto show?
Leiji Matsumoto. Thank you for saying that. I wrote that down too.
And no, the dad kind of reminds me from the dad from Totoro for some reason. It's like,
oh yeah,
I wrote that down
like they
too.
came from completely two different movies and came together. But I think there's nothing to complain about. We do see, despite them being dead, we do see Oko's parents quite a bit during the movie. And And they sound genuine. That's really all I can say. In fact, that's basically going to be a lot of what I'm going to be saying to a lot of the characters tonight, especially the smaller ones, is it sounds genuine. It sounds fine. I have no real complaints one way or the other. Yeah, I really have nothing more to say.
I'm in agreement. Like, they both do a very good job. They sound very authentic, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, one of the things I enjoy about this dub is that, like...
But, like, they sound like authentically dead parents?
When they're especially in the beginning when they're, like, just talking with Oko, it's like, oh, this is a family. And also the way they, like, interact and bounce off each other feels like, oh, they sound like even for, like, their sporadic appearances, I very much buy them as like, oh, this is a family unit, aren't they? They're so cute and sweet, and they joke with each other, and they give good, solid performances. And I guess play the interesting trick of having to play characters who just exist in that weird liminal space of, like, they're not even ghosts; they're imaginary friends almost. As their daughter processes her grief.
I don't think I've really ever seen that in anything else before. Like, most of the time, if you've got a character who is passed on and someone's communing with them, then yeah, they're like very visibly ghosts. There's not like this I'm still in limbo kind of characterization of them. So that was refreshing to watch in this movie. The sincerity of them being like a full family, like that opening scene of them at the temple shrine and kind of talking about how when we were younger we wanted to be the couple performing the routine on stage. I don't know what the proper term for it is, but it's basically a dance rendition talking about the history of the culture, I suppose. It's like it's very revered. What's the word I'm looking for? Revered. It's a revered role. There we go. Yeah. So their entire pulling it off. I think that James is maybe a little on the flatter side. Like maybe some of his line reads they're supposed to be a little more subdued. Like he's not a goofy dad and he's not an overly stern dad. He's a chill dad. He's a very cool dad archetype. And sometimes it's hard to pull off without getting into flat line reads or just being more subdued. But I mean, overall, it sounds like a believably chill dad character. And then Allison's got a little more maturity to her, a little more mature sounding. But yeah, when they play off of each other, it sounds exactly like you guys were saying, two people who just make a really cohesive family together. So that covers that group. That was quick, wasn't it?
Well, when you have a 90-minute movie, there's only so much you can talk about.
That's true. There was a TV series actually based on this that Madhouse also did, but that never got licensed, at least in America, so I can't find it anywhere.
Bewildering.
Don't know why that was, but anyways. So moving on to the actual inn itself. Once we get the ball rolling, we need a couple of people to actually man the inn, or in this place, grandma the inn. So let's move on to our cast of characters who run this inn. So, the grandma who runs the inn is Minaki Seki, and she has been doing this for quite a while, and she's a grandma character. We'll get to her when we get to her. But not only do we get to talk about her in her current stage of 100 plus years old, I don't quite know. They also flash back to her as a young character, and we get to see her interacting with another character who we'll also talk about in a bit. Just in her younger days, which is played by a different voice actor, so we'll cover that as well. We also have Etsuki Tajima, who is sort of the maid of the inn. It's a smaller inn, so I guess one housekeeper is basically all that they really need. And we also have the cook, who is Ko Minoda, and like we said, you gotta feed people. You can't open an inn and just give them a good bed. You gotta feed them, and you gotta feed them right. So who plays these characters? So for Minaki, we have Glynis Ellis. Has she done anime work before? Yes, she has. If you saw the dub of Your Name, she plays Mitsuha's grandma, Hitoshi, in that movie. So this isn't her first rodeo as an anime grandma. Has she done anything else besides that? No, not really. If you've seen her in anything before, if you're a fan of watching Law & Order Criminal Intent, or Law & Order SVU, You've probably seen her as judges in all of those shows, because she plays a lot of judges in television shows.
No, are we talking about a seasoned TV character actor who is not known for one role in particular, but you may have seen in a bunch of stuff without knowing it?
That is exactly what I'm talking about. Very perceptive.
Yes, I love talking about them. They're so good at acting without being obvious about it.
That's true, because, I mean, I've only seen SVU mostly, but, I mean, if she showed up in the other shows as a judge or as, like, any other character, I probably wouldn't recognize her, but I'd be like, damn, she's really good at this. Switching over to young Minako, we have a relative newcomer to the voiceover scene. We have Fiona Fatwava. The only role that I could find for her in, and I'm not just talking about in voiceover, but I mean like in acting at all, is there is this Amazon series called The Bug Diaries, and she plays the character of Elsie in that series. So as you can imagine, she's a little on the younger side, which maybe makes her a good fit for a young character. We'll get to that in a bit. So, covering for Etsuko is Noelle M. Depoila, and she has done a good chunk of voiceover work, particularly in the New York side of things. If you've seen I, My, Me, Strawberry Eggs, she plays the principal. If you've seen, let's go way back here, if you've seen Haibane Renmei, she plays the house mother in that. Love that series. And she's also had various voiceover work in a couple of other NYAV dubbed movies, like Lou Over the Wall and Satellite Girl and Milk Cow. And finally, to round it out for the Chef Co, we have Scott Williams, who has done some voiceover work. Yeah, he's done some dub work before. If you've seen Gundam Thunderbolt December Sky, he plays Burroughs on that. If you've seen Your Name, we're bringing it right back to Your Name, he plays Toshiki, which is Mitsuha's dad in that movie. And if you've seen... this is probably what he's most well known for in the anime circle. If you've seen and or played any Pokemon series that has the character of Darkrai in it, he plays Darkrai, like in Pokemon Rise of Darkrai. Again, I don't know who this character is. I'm just reading the ANN cast list. I know there's someone listening out there who knows exactly who I'm talking about. Hardy, do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't watch Pokemon. All I know is...
I can confirm...
All I know about Pokemon is that Snorlax is the best.
This is true. I can confirm that Darkrai is a Pokemon, so he's one of those people they've hired to just say the same word in different inflections into a microphone.
Oh, okay.
Which sounds like not a terrible gig, frankly.
No, that was I think it was one of the, in the original dub, one of the engineers or someone got the job of playing Charmander and thought he was just going to be like a one-note character. So like, well, I'll fill in for this. But then he had to keep doing it over and over again until the end of time.
Poor bastard.
So let's talk about the people who run this inn, basically. Amon, first thoughts on Minako.
She's good. That's Grandma. She actually reminds me a little bit of my grandmother in that she's nice, but she also ran an actual fucking business for several decades and will not take your shit if you try and push it on her. Which I appreciated. That's always fun. I liked Linus's performance a lot. She felt again like authentically grandmothery. Especially when like she's playing off of Oko, you can see that like the warmth of the relationship there. But she also, it's like, I'm running a business here. We have a way of doing things. And like, you're my granddaughter, I love you, but if you're going to live here, gotta do it right.
Yeah. It's an interesting dichotomy because she's very old-fashioned. She's very much, wear the traditional kimono, run the inn like they've been for decades. But she doesn't come off as like overly strict either, which is a very interesting contrast.
Yeah, no, I feel like if this were like an American production, she'd be like one of the antagonists of it, and she'd have to warm up to Oko or something like that. And here it's just like, no, just do your job well, and everything's fine. That's all.
I appreciated that as well. She wasn't like the cranky grandma who has to loosen up. So,
yeah.
Have either of you seen this ancient Disney movie called Pollyanna?
It's been ages.
I'm familiar with Pollyanna.
All I can remember about that movie is somebody ending up with a cherry pie on their face. That's literally the only thing I remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot to remember from that movie, but if that's all that's probably good because there's a lot of horrible stuff in that movie too. So I'm glad you remembered the one good part about it. But I bring it up because the aunt character that Pollyanna has to go live with is like what I assumed that Minako would be like you're saying, Amon, in an American production. This is very, the world is a dark, cruel place, and I must raise you to deal with it. But then she warms up to her sunshiny personality by the end of it. So, Hardy, what's your take on Glynis's portrayal of playing yet another anime grandma?
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, again, like I'm going to be saying with a lot of the minor characters in this episode, that none of them really acted in any way that I did not personally enjoy. I think the problem with, other than Minako, especially with the housekeepers and the cook, is that they sort of blend in the background. Mm-hmm. They are very, they're important to the plot, but at the same time, they're very one-note characters. I think other than the two junior innkeepers and the spirits, that's going to be the case with most of the cast. So it's kind of hard for me to really develop a solid opinion based simply on that. Okay, especially if it was a TV series, that I could better judge the characters over time. But because it's all self-contained in a 90-minute movie, it's really hard to break down the individual performances because they hit the notes that they're supposed to, and then they just sort of go away after 90 minutes.
Yeah. There is the downside of they have to be there for a functional purpose, so they don't exactly have personalities outside of that function for Etsuko and Ko. So. I'm going to give you a challenge here, Hardy. Let's say you're the casting director on this, and you've got a movie being made, and you get to choose the voice actors. Do you go the route that they picked and pick good actors with normal-sounding voices, or do you go celebrity? Like, do you get Gilbert Gottfried and Roseanne Barr to play these characters?
The only time it is ever okay to go full celebrity is not with anime dubs. It's with prelay, because then the characters are basically based on the actors. You don't cast Chris Rock to play a zebra. You make that zebra act like Chris Rock. And so there have been a very, very few times to where I've actually been impressed with actual celebrities in anime dubs. And there is one like, well, I mean, there are exceptions like Patrick Stewart and in Nausicaa. And also, of course, the late great Phil Hartman in
Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yeah, exactly. But they, I do not stunt cast. I would never stunt cast. And so it's better if you're going to pull from more live action and theater actors, then it's definitely better to go with someone who can actually understand the concept of anime and voice acting in general.
I'm going to agree with that. As fun as I'm sure it would be to get, like, who's the Hell's Kitchen guy? I'm blanking on his name right now.
Gordon Ramsay.
And as fun as it would be to get Gordon Ramsay to voice the cook in this, just for the knowledge that it's Gordon Ramsay, I agree. That would take away from the believability of the role because it would be stunt casting. It wouldn't do justice to the source material.
I was going to say, usually the only time that works is when they've happened to stunt cast somebody who is, like, in one of the Ghibli dubs, like, Mark Hamill plays one of the villains, I think, and it's like, Mark Hamill has plenty of VO experience. Like, he doesn't need to be taught anything here.
I mean, that's I wouldn't consider that an example of stunt casting, because, he's...
I mean, that's...
By that point, yes, he was Luke Skywalker, but by that point when the movie was being...
I mean, that's also true. Mark Hamill is not exactly a marquee name.
No.
Maybe as of the last few years he is again, but certainly not when that was being done.
Definitely. Like, when they cast him as the villain in, like, Motor City, I'm like, that is exactly where he belongs. This is not typecasting a movie star. This is making good use of your Mark Hamill.
That's fair.
That's same thing to say about guys like Ron Perlman or Keith David.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as fun as it would be to maybe model the Shadow Man off of Keith David's performance, I mean, like he fit into that role really well, and he brought his own personality to it. So I guess that kind of covers Etsuko and Ko pretty well because I mean I'm on the side of saying like they're very good at what they do. They fill the role well. Like Noelle's got that good maternal voice to her. Scott has like a bit of a grustle because he's supposed to be an older voice, but he sounds good. But I don't have anything negative or standoutish to say about either of them.
Yeah, no, that's my feeling. It's like they're playing deliberately simple characters. They play them really well. I enjoyed it. I wasn't distracted by anything.
Cool. So I guess that the only one to really talk about then that, and this is going to cover into the child actor portion of it, which thank you, directing casters, for actually having child actors in this, because it's a coin flip situation about whether or not you get a good performance, as it always is. But I appreciate that in a world of having girls play young characters all the time in our dubs, I appreciate getting child actors once in a while. So what did you guys think about Fiona's brief appearance as young Minako?
It's there. She has like 2 lines. It's
fine.
Yeah.
But was it cute?
I guess. Sure. Again, it's
look,
it's
sometimes you just have a small, not thankless, but just a tiny role, and it's barely big enough for you to even leave an impression.
What do they say? There are no small actors, only small... No, there's no small parts, only small actors.
And I think...
Sure.
I think this character it covers both aspects of that.
That's true. I'm just imagining in the future, like, maybe 10 years in the future, Fiona is going to be like a huge anime voice actor, and we could have the luxury of saying like, aha, we covered her before anybody else did.
We were here first.
We call first in the comments section. But yeah, it's a small part, and she does it well. I mean, Hardy, was this one of those child actor examples you're thinking of that didn't quite work for you?
I don't even know because it's so small. It's over. There's a flashback sequence that lasts about, if it's 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
It's impressive. But I mean, I have nothing to say. It's such a small part.
Fair point.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved to have told Glynis, hey, we're gonna have you play a young version of yourself here. Can you pitch your voice up to sound 5 years old in this scene? I'm sure that would be fun to listen to, but I much prefer that they actually get an actual child for the role. So I think that covers the cast, the covers the Inn's cast pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I love how we got off on a side tangent talking about Mark Hamill and Keith David.
Stunt casting.
That was great.
There needs to be at least one tangent every episode.
Yeah.
Now we've met our quota, and we can be smooth sailors.
Excellent.
No more tangents.
None? Oh, come on, Hardy. All right, I promise.
Maybe at the very end if we're very, very good.
I'll try my best. Speaking of trying my best, when you've got an inn, you've got to have people stay in it, or else you're out of a job. And we're going to cover very quickly. There's basically 3 major storylines in this movie, because this is not a movie that has a very linear first act, second act, and final act. This feels like strung together multiple stories from multiple books that just happen to make up the length of a movie. So we're going to talk about the 6 guests that make up the bulk of the people who stay at the inn. The first 2 who we're going to talk about are a father and son pair. It is Kanda Kosei and his son Akane Kosei. They are visiting the local area to visit the shrines because the wife/mother died not too long ago, and so they're kind of dealing with the grief of that, specifically Akane, and luckily Oko's capriciousness kind of gets to him as she helps him deal with, as someone who also lost her parents recently, get over that grief. The second person who is of keynote is Seki, aka Glory Suryu, and she is basically a fortune teller. And not only that, she's a spendthrifty, fashion-obsessed fortune teller. I did not know that fortune tellers could make enough money to go on a Chanel kind of shopping spree, but apparently they can. So we get to talk about that. And then lastly, we get to talk about a family, a father, a mother, and a son, Bunta, Toriko, and Shota Kisei. And the main consent is that Bunta is there kind of recovering after an accident, which requires him to have to eat food that is low salt and low cholesterol. And luckily, Oko and Ko's Brazilians get the job done right before we find out a tragic past story about Bunta that kind of makes up the climax of the movie, as it were. There's not really a climax, but we have to have one to finish it off. So, I'm going to rapid round style who plays all these characters. Kanda is voiced by Nikolai Gordon. He has been in one thing I have been able to find before, and he is Moses in a 2015 film called Dark Prism, which I have not seen nor had I heard of before. So I apologize, Nikolai, I'm not familiar with your work ahead of this. Who I am a little more familiar with is Akane's voice actor, Ethan Jack Berman. Now, he does not have any other screen or voiceover performances, but what he is Ethan is, he's the founder of EJB Entertainment, which does live shows and DJ entertainment around the New York area, and I particularly love, he's got accessibility on the website Cameo, which a lot of voice actors do, and his tagline is, I'll roast your friends, fire your employees, and make you laugh. That was quite the eye-catching slogan.
Really? Huh.
Yes. We'll get to talk about this in a second, but there's people who have very interesting entertainment backgrounds, such as the voice actor for Glory, who is Brittany Cox. She has done some voiceover work before. Actually, if you've seen Gundam Build Divers Re-Rise, she plays Maya in that one. If you've seen the Netflix redub of the series Altered Carbon Resleeved, she plays Holly. And it's also an interesting one. She's also done some voiceover redubbing for feature films as well. There's this Swedish dystopian sci-fi film called Anaria, which is basically a spaceship that goes off course trying to get to Mars, and the cast is basically dealing with their existential crisis. She voices a character named Esther in that one. So she's got quite a mix of interesting history on this. Also an interesting history is the person who plays Bunta. Bunta is voiced by Lex Wautas, and you have heard him if you've seen both old and new anime. He was Lord Alberto in Giant Robo. If you saw the recent film Napping Princess, he played Ichiro. But if you want to go way back in time, if anyone remembers a little show called Space Pirate Mito, he plays the character of Black Ronbon in that series. I'm hearing crickets from all the listeners out there, so I'm assuming that no one has heard of Space Pirate Mito, which is not
Heard it, not seen it.
That's the most I can say.
Yeah, but it does get referenced in Space Pirate Luluco. Or Space Patrol Luluco, yeah.
That is the only reason that I know of that, because you look at the art style of Mito, and it looks kind of like what they went for with Luluco, and like you said, they have a direct shout-out to it in that show. So, his wife, Toriko, is voiced by Erica Schroeder, and she is probably one of the more seasoned anime actresses in this. If you saw the Fooly Cooly Alternative miniseries, she played the character of Maki. If you saw the recent dub of Emma, A Victorian Romance, she plays Kelly.
Nobody's seen the recent dub because it hasn't been released yet, Noah.
That's true. This is for the future.
Trick question.
That's right. It is for the future listeners who have gotten to see it. And okay, here's one that nobody remembers except for Jet. Jet will remember this. If you've seen Shaman King, she played the character of Lyserg in that one. I only know this because I know he's recently been going through the series of Shaman King. And finally, Shota is played by Michael Diener, and he's a child actor as well. So not too many roles to point out. Like, he had various voices in movies like Lou Over the Wall, Makuya, and Mazinger Z Infinity, and the character of Jack in a pilot of a series called It's a Man's World, which I can't describe. I will just say, if you want to find out what it's about, go find it out. It's interesting. I'll say that much. So that's a lot of people to talk about. Amon, who do you want to take a stab at first?
I'm gonna start with the Kosais, who I thought they did a nice job. I especially liked Ethan's performance. I thought he did a good job of making Akane sound like a moody teenager.
No kidding.
But not I know, but not like his grief felt legitimate. Like poorly done. I think you can end up with a weird thing where like this kid who's mourning the death of his parent just sounds kind of whiny.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he did a good job of making it feel like actually sincere. Like this felt like a young person who has gone through something horrible and is kind of just resentful about everything right now because he's in a real bad place. I liked him as well. I thought Nikolai was pretty good. I thought of a lot of the one-off characters, for whatever reason, I thought Kanda seemed the most slight. It might have just been that I found his hairstyle very distracting. I don't know, the long hair and kind of like the half beard thing. It's not working for me.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, are they supposed to be hobos? Are they not going to be able to pay for their hotel room?
I'm assuming he's some sort of pretentious artiste type. I don't know.
They do exist.
He kind of looks like Saiten from the old video game Xenogears.
See, that he looks like a character from Xenogears really says it all, doesn't it?
I mean, I was just going to say Eraserhead, but sure. What's a Xenogear?
We'll tell you next. Don't worry about it.
I'm bad at everything.
But I did like Nikolai's performance. I thought he did a good job playing this guy who's trying his best. And is in the awkward position that he has, probably by being an adult, has moved on a little more readily than his son has, and is maybe not entirely sure how to handle that.
Now, see, I'm going to disagree because of the entire cast, even for one-note side characters, I thought Nikolai was the weakest of the entire cast. It's very didactic and monotone in his delivery, and I've got just one line where he's talking to Oko, and whatever reason he was saying it like this, he says, "We need a place to stay." I was like, why are you talking like that? So, I mean, I think he was trying to go for like a more subdued voice. He was supposed to be, still grieving, which is understandable, but it was the kind of line read where it sounds like someone reading lines off a paper.
It was his first take.
It could very well have been. I mean, it wasn't like so bad that I would switch over to the sub track or anything like that. It was just kind of like someone who maybe just needs a little more experience in voiceover first.
Would you say that he might have looking at the character? Would you say that he probably like took a drag off a joint before he read it?
I mean, I can chill with those kind of guys. Like I can, shake a snow globe with those guys and say, "You ever think about how small the universe is, and we're just a tiny speck on it?" Like I can get with that. This guy was just like kind of checked out. The kind of guy who you go to their cubicle at 4:30 in the afternoon, it's 30 minutes, and he's gone. He is already planning out his afternoon.
I have a hard time believing that Ethan is only 18 years old, because he sounded a whole lot younger in this. In fact, when I first watched it, I thought it was the case where they had a female voice actress play the character.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so it's kind of throws me for a loop that Ethan actually owns his own business. That's
I am shocked to learn this guy is old enough to own anything. Like he does not sound he nails being useful very well.
Yeah. I don't have any other roles of his to point to and say like watch this as another indicative of what his style is. But I've looked online and there's a video interview that Ethan did. It was like very low profile, only a couple hundred views on it. But he basically talked about how he kind of did the George Carlin thing of got the taste of being praised at a young age and just kind of like kept chasing that. And so even in like through high school started the small entertainment business that would travel to weddings, bar mitzvahs, office parties, and put on performances with a crew. And he's apparently still doing that in college. I think he's at NYU right now.
Oh, that's interesting. Because he sounded much younger than he apparently is. And so that actually is pretty impressive. Nikolai didn't stand out to me, other than being just sort of the shabby old hobo dad. He didn't really have much of a presence, and so again, it comes down to I would have more of an opinion if this wasn't just a 90-minute movie, and I could explore these characters over a longer period of episodes. And then there have been 90-minute movies that I can have more of an impression over the actor's performance. And just with this one, it's just, I guess it just feels so natural and so moot that you don't really listen very much for the quality of the performance. It's just kind of there.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm going to move on because I want to talk about a few of these actors who, until I saw the credits, I was convinced that they were other voice actors than who they are.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, right. Toriko, Erica as Toriko is, again, just there. Doesn't really make an impression to me. And so, and I have I say Michael as Shota sounds like a little kid. I mean, because Shota is probably the youngest character that we deal with in the movie because he's literally just a toddler. And the fact that he sounds like a toddler, it makes his job well done, I guess.
So,
when he's hollering about not wanting to leave the inn, it's
Yeah.
like, this is a very authentic young child complaining. This is
this kid
spot
feels
on.
he's got practice.
Correct
He's got
casting
practice.
choice.
Right. Now let me talk about Brittany Cox as Glory and Lex Wotus as Bunta, because I could have sworn... See, I actually watched this in the theater. I could have sworn that these two were Amber Lee Connors and DC Douglas. I could swear by it. But actually now having watched the DVD, the Blu-ray again, and actually listened to it, now I know I can tell the difference. But I for the longest time, I'm like, no way, that's got to be a pseudonym. They got to be using an alias or something like that. But no, it
is.
And that's what I think about their performance. I think that Glory sounds very similar to Amber Lee Connors' sort of delivery. And that's not always a good thing because Amber is one of my love it or hate it actresses with her performances.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think Glory is a fun character, but I don't think the performance was 100%. I think it could have used a little bit more punch-up, and a few lines fell rather flat.
Are we talking about the flatness? Are we talking about in like the hanging out back at the inn scene and she's talking about her history, or are we talking about the car ride to the mall scene? Because those are very different parts of her personality.
More or less whenever she's being more subdued and not more in her energetic moments.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Glory is probably one of my favorite characters in the whole film.
Oh, by far.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's not a bad performance, but I think it might have been better with a few more takes. Without sounding too mean. Lex is Bunta. Again, I could have swore he was DC Douglas. But,
can you remind me who DC Douglas is again?
Well, you wouldn't know who Wesker was, so because you don't play Resident Evil.
That's like a computer game, right?
Yeah, it's one of them Vidya games.
I like you know.
But did you watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Diamond is Unbreakable?
I haven't seen any of it beyond the first season.
Okay, because he was Yoshikage Kira. I don't know of any roles you would be familiar with, Noah, to be perfectly honest, because you don't watch the new anime. So,
I've been busy watching Retro Crush stuff recently. I just watched Blue Submarine #6 last night.
Retro Crush is some good stuff. But anyways, yeah, I think he's able, because of Bunta's history, his past, and what he's currently going through, I think he was really able to bring this genuine fatherly tone to this guy he's trying his best to make up for his mistakes, and he just wants to eat some good fucking food.
Finally, some good fucking food.
Yeah.
He just wants to be able to enjoy his meal. God damn it.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think he did a really good job as the wounded father, both wounded in his body and his pride and his soul.
Yeah, that the entire lead into finding out that he was the one who caused the car accident that killed Oko's parents at the beginning of the movie is well built up, because I mean, I didn't know, like, why do we need to care about this whiny I want to eat good food guy, and then we find out why, and I'm like, oh. And so, and his kind of apology, his very much breakdown near the end of the movie about how he can't make amends for anything, and he would just hope that Oko can forgive him, is a really strong performance. Like, it definitely sells the climax of the movie, because we needed a big emotional thing to finish it off, and Lex gave it to us. I'll also agree that Toriko and Shoto are good character actors in what they have to do. You know, like they fill the roles that they need to. Michael sounds like he's, you know, having fun playing a kid in a movie where he is himself a kid. So yeah, no criticisms there either. Amon, what about yourself on either Glory or the Kiseis?
I agree. Erica and Michael are nice. Michael, good little. He does that little whiny little kid good. Erica's like good and solid. She plays the wife. She turns in a perfectly good performance. I enjoy Brittany as Glory a lot, especially during, like, I think a lot of it's just the mall montage. I haven't seen a movie with a good shopping montage in years.
It just came out of nowhere too.
It really did, and I was just like, "Oh, this is nice. Look at this. They're having a blast." I thought she was a lot of fun, and I thought Lex did a good job, especially during the moments when, like, you find out why he's in this movie. And I thought he just played it really well. Like, he nailed the drama of the scene. Also, he was in Giant Robo, which I love, so props to that. Yeah, you wait. Yeah, you listeners out there, you wait till that Blu-ray comes out. We're gonna talk about Giant Robo. Let me tell you.
I'm only like, Giant Robo is that connected to a Go Nagai series, or am I thinking of a different?
No, no, I believe it's a different. I think the creator of that also created like one of the. Well, it's Johnny Sakoda's Flying Robot.
That doesn't clear it up for me.
No, it's another one of like the really old like pre-Gundam giant robot shows.
That's
from,
what
like,
I was
the
thinking.
60s.
I only know stuff made by Go Nagai or Tezuka.
I think that's pre-Go Nagai as well. Actually, now that I think about it, I think it's even older than that. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, these are like a nice set of performances on the whole. They hit their marks. They did a reasonably good job.
Yeah. So it sounds like on the whole, like us trio of manly men are in agreement that this is basically good filling of the roles that they had to have. I mean, like you were saying, Hardy, if this was a TV series and we could devote one whole episode to each of the groups, then we could probably flesh them out a little bit more. But the series decided not to do that. It's interesting that a lot of comparisons can be drawn between Ghibli films to this one. Honestly, what this reminds me the most of is like movies that feel like a bunch of smaller stories stitched together. And actually,
Japan has a lot of those. I think Miss Hokusai was like that too.
Yeah, that was another one. That also felt like that there wasn't really a through line. It was just a bunch of smaller stories stitched together.
That's because it was based on a manga, and manga are in general like they tend to have, you know, filler parts and stuff like that.
Right.
So
no, the
not all of them are complete serials. That'd be like if they made a movie based on Master Keaton. It'd be like 3 different chapters.
I mean, I can see them doing not adaptation of all the content. I can see them doing the Blackjack thing for Master Keaton, where they pick one really good story and just amp it up for a theatrical release. But
well, I mean, the best episode of that show is Coreyman of the Desert, and they fit that within 24 minutes.
They did, but can you honestly say that you would?
Yeah, so they could have even more scenes of him just lounging around London, not doing much of anything.
And you know, stealing spoons and random paraphernalia from desks and stuff without thinking it.
So tell me you wouldn't pay good money to see that animated.
Yeah, Keaton's a fucking klepto.
You can't.
He's basically Marie from Breaking Bad.
Right. Anyways, we're getting off track.
That's what we do here. But yes, so yeah, good roll on the characters to say in the end. I'm sure that if anyone finally gets around to licensing the series that apparently is much more episodic, that we get even more characters to talk about. But what we do get to move on to is we get to talk about the spirits around the inn. Yes, this is not just an inn with an adorably cute schoolgirl junior maid. We also have spirits haunting, well, not really haunting the area, but basically Oko can only see them. And we'll talk about why they're here. The first one who she encounters, and she even encounters him before she even gets to the inn, she encounters him in her near-death experience, is Makoto Tachiyuri, or Uribo, who is a boy who died many years ago and was actually a close friend of her grandma, Minako, and has basically been hanging around the inn as a living spirit, just keeping an eye on her, and Oko's the only one that can interact with him. Another spirit that only Oko can interact with is a character named Mio Akino, who is a young girl who died when she was also very young. There's a theme here of young kids dying and turning into ghosts. And she's actually technically the older sister of another character who we will talk about in the final section. And also, we've got not a ghost, but a little spirit horned demon named Suzuki. Like the car! They actually throw that in the script. Who is responsible for basically attracting guests to the inn. He's got she, it's not quite clear, is kind of like a attractor of good and negative energy alike. And so manages to bring a lot of people to the inn. And so that's why we keep them around. And
subsequently steal their food.
It's a small price to pay. I mean, you weren't going to eat those tea cakes anyway.
Fuck, I was. What are you talking about?
They did look good.
You steal my pudding, I put you in the hospital.
That also looked good. It tastes like summer. Please don't put me in the hospital. I have a family to feed. So, voicing these characters, Uribo is voiced by K.J. Ikens, and this is once again a actor who only has one role to my knowledge. So there's this FX series called Pose that has been running for many years. It's about 1987 New York City. And KJ plays a character named Quincy in that show. To my understanding, he only shows up in 1, maybe 2 episodes, but that is still more than any of us have been in, so that is commendable, KJ. Mio is voiced by Tessa Frescogna. That's a mouthful, sorry. Who has a lot of theater experience. She was recently in a Broadway production of Annie as the character of Molly. And if you've seen her in anything on television, she plays Girl in one episode of The Blacklist, which is this 8-season-long show that I also have not gotten around to seeing. Heard of it, just haven't seen it yet.
Is that the one with Spader, right?
Yeah.
I believe so, yes. James Spader comes back to the public eye.
So, but one person who, all right, we'll finally get around to an actress that you have heard of before. Finally here. You ever hear of an actress named Colleen O'Shaughnessy?
Yeah, she's...
Name rings a bell.
She's Momo Yayarosu, right? Oh, wait, that's the other Colleen.
No! Oh, God. So, yeah. Colleen voices the character of Suzuki. And you've heard Colleen in stuff like Sora from Digimon Everything. If you've been watching the super successful Toei production of Glitter Force, she plays the character of Kelsey. But of course, all of you know her as the character of Jazz Fenton in Danny Phantom. Finally going to talk about that show on this podcast. Woo!
Yeah. Also, she's also Ino Yamanaka, aka the blonde Momo. So
yeah, she's been in quite a bit, both on the anime and American side of things. So when we were going through the cast list of this, and I told these guys, there's maybe one actress that I recognize in this entire cast, and that was the one who I recognized.
Actually, wait. I will note, of the cast list on this that's on Wikipedia, she's the only one who has her own Wikipedia page. So
I'm telling you, one day Fiona is going to have her own page, and we're going to be so proud that we covered her first. But switching over to the spirits and trolls here, Hardy, what do you think? We got 2 newbies and 1 seasoned veteran.
Well, the seasoned veteran, you can definitely tell because she really knocks it out of the park, and it's by playing, I guess, what I assume is a male character because it doesn't wear, because it goes around shirtless, but that doesn't mean anything.
No.
Colleen obviously brings her A game because she voices it with a little boy voice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I know she has done little boy voices in the past. I can't really remember one off the top of my head.
I can't either.
But it works for this particular character, because he is basically a troll who loves to steal people's food and just cause various amounts of mischief. But he does help out with the weeds, so he has that in his favor.
Mm-hmm.
The other two, these are where it starts to get iffy with the child actors.
Okay.
Because I really don't know what kind of voice KJ was going for with Uribo. I'm like, there were times to where it felt like it was obvious he was reading off a script.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times to where it did feel a little bit more natural. But it's kind of hard to really... Because Uribo is... He's an interesting little guy because during some of his more high energy moments where he's chasing Mio and where he's breaking down because Oko can't see him anymore, you can definitely tell that there's emotion behind it, but it doesn't always come across as authentic. And same thing with Tessa as Mio. You definitely, they are held back by the fact that they're child actors. And they don't necessarily have the finesse or the experience that older actors would have. And so it is commendable to use child actors, but it's not always the best idea because you can't always get the best product at the end of the day.
Okay.
And it's a double-edged sword. It is a double-edged sword. And that's what I have to say about both of these.
I'm looking at, when I think of the most iconic child acting, I think of like the Charlie Brown productions. I think of the specials or even the movie that came out not too long ago. And in some of those cases, it was very obvious that they were reading off of a script, but that was also much more subdued content. Like those were kids trying to sound like saying lines written by an adult. Like what kind of a kid talks about real estate and pandemonium. But these are the characters in this. Like, I commend that the script lets them be kids in this. They're anime kids, so there's like Mio's got a little bit of the capricious younger girl archetype to her. What exactly Uribo is going for, or what KJ is going for with Uribo, I think is supposed to play off the fact that he's got big buck teeth in his character design. So I think he was trying to go for a bit of a lisp. I think that was intentional.
Possibly, yeah.
I mean, it's also a bit of a slower speaking pattern compared to Mio. Like, I was kind of surprised because a lot of times with the child actors, they'll like speak in a bit of a slower pattern, which is more like what people normally talk like. In this podcast here, we're talking in this pace of speaking right here. But if we were doing this for professional voice acting, we have to like speak much faster to keep the pace of the cartoon going. So I kind of like what both KJ and Tessa were doing in this. It's very like it breaks up what we're used to, I guess, in anime. I guess what I'm getting down to is that if this was how all anime sounded, I guess I'd be just meh on it. But it sounds novel because we're not used to this. We're used to like the Barakamon situation where we got grown women to play children or any other show that you've seen recently. So I like the novelty of that, and I guess it didn't bother me too much. All right, Amon.
Yeah, the novelty is good. It's just that not every actress could be, your Dakota Fanning or your Dave Chase. They're not going to have that natural talent at a young age. So
I mean, I feel really bad for Dave Chase because she was really good in Lilo and Stitch, but then horribly directed in something like Spirited Away. Like I don't know what was going on with that direction. But I think these guys were directed well. Like what they were going for, there doesn't feel like a misdirection in their acting. So, all right, so Amon, you have to break the tie here. Are you team, this is good and novel and nothing should change? Or are you team, you know what? It's okay. It's just not the best.
It probably comes down a little more on the side of... I'm positive on it. I thought especially... I mean, I thought with Oribo or Mio, I thought they it's that thing. People, they sound authentically like children. Which, especially in anime, and even in just, like, even Western animation in some capacity, like, you don't hear that as often, depending on what you're looking at. So it's also, like, when Oribo first starts talking, I thought, like, I like this tone of voice. This feels like there's a good, even aside from the performance, there's a good vocal quality for this character here. And I thought that helped carry a lot of the performance for me. And sort of the same thing with Tessa, who I thought, just vocally did a good job being, like, sort of a brat, this bratty child aspect. And in her case, I thought they did a good job of matching an actress who believably passes for a relative for another character we're going to talk about in the next section, which I thought helped that as well. It's like, okay, yeah, I buy that, like, these two people are, like, immediate relatives, that kind of thing. So I think in that regard, that's the other thing. Like, if this was more common, it might seem less special, but because, like, so much of anime voice acting tends to be a little more over the top than what this show is going for, I thought, like, even just that naturalism helps sell it in a way that even if the performances themselves are a little shaky, because they are, they're child actors, and as we've seen, they don't have a lot of, like, recorded professional experience that we can point to. I think that worked. All right. And Colleen was great because she clearly knows how to play a little mischief Oni who just goes around eating people's food and eating weeds and so on.
That is a good contrast to, like, she, like, the two not very seasoned people, and all of a sudden you hear in the same scene a voice actress that has clearly been doing this for much, much longer and knows exactly what they're doing. It's like night and day comparison. I akin it to, like, if you've ever seen Howl's Moving Castle, look, Christian Bale's a fine actor and all sorts, but you watch the whole thing, he's not really a voice actor kind of person, and then you get to the end of the movie and you hear professional, charismatic voice actor Crispin Freeman, and his voice is just like, wow, that's what we've been missing this whole movie.
I don't know what you're talking about. Christian Bale gives the best line delivery of his entire career in that movie when he's complaining about how his stuff has been moved. But yeah, I did enjoy these performances on the whole. I thought they were good.
All right, that's fair. I don't have anything else to add on that, but I do think that in comparison to the one-note characters, these ones do get a little more time to develop, and we get to feel a little. First of all, we get to feel sorry for them because two of them are dead, and the other one is always hungry. I don't feel bad for Suzuki. Suzuki's got it going on.
Suzuki's got a great deal.
No complaints there.
And it's vague as to whether Suzuki actually disappears like the other two at the end or not.
That's true. That leads itself into an interesting quandary about, like, are they disappeared? Like, did they move on to the afterlife, or are they is Oko just can't see them anymore?
Well, no, it explains that they get reincarnated.
Oh, right. The final scene, they were talking about that. You're right. I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me. So, so these three, I feel like I'd like for you guys in the comment section to kind of tell us your thoughts on that, because this isn't something we get to normally talk about. We don't get to talk about child actors in anime or much of anything, really. I mean, I haven't been watching the Amazon series The Bug Diaries, have you?
Okay.
If one of us is going to be, it'd be you, the one with actual children. So.
Yeah, you think I pay for Amazon? Hell no.
That's a good answer, Hardy. I like your honesty.
Yeah, I ain't giving Jeff Bezos no more money.
And well said indeed. So, speaking of giving people money, let us move on to the final two characters. And you would think what you're just going to talk about Oko, right? The title character. Oh, no. You see, in this movie, we have not one, but two junior innkeepers. Two young girls who happen to be the exact same age, learning the business of running competing inns in the same area. And we're going to talk about both of them because they are like complete opposites of each other. Of course, we are going to talk about Oriko Oko Seki, who is the title character on the poster, learning to wear a kimono, loves pudding, and is just all around the sweetest girl in the entire world. Like, I just want to put her in my pocket and take her home with me. But we're also going to talk about...
That's illegal, Noah.
Hold on. No, hold on. I will sign the necessary paperwork for it. I will make this legal somehow. Jennifer is giving me weird looks in the living room right now.
Creep.
I want what I want. Alright, Jen says she's not staying here. That killed that. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and we're also going to talk about Matsuki Akino, who is frilly pink. She is a... I know me and Amon went back and forth on whether or not she qualifies, but she's basically an Ojo-sama character who is is learning to run her family's inn, and apparently the Akinos are like the smartest, wealthiest, most important, most extraordinary people in the entire world. They're basically the special from the Lego movie, and so
they're better than you. And they know it.
More of everything than you, and that personality has to be conveyed in this pink frilly girl who is possibly an antagonist. ... It's questionable by the end of the movie.
She means well, but she needs to work on her delivery, because
she's more antagonistic than an antagonist, because it's clearly born out of the fact of like she takes being an innkeeper very seriously, and her main beef is just that she thinks Oko isn't.
Yeah,
and when it becomes more clear that Oko is taking this seriously, she warms up.
That's a good point to it. So these two characters are voiced by actresses. What a shock! Oko.
Oh, wow.
Oko is voiced by...
Really? I thought one of them was going to be a Vocaloid or something.
Don't you bring that on my... One of these days...
Don't give Japan ideas, Amon.
Just one day we'll have a movie where it's all just Vocaloids. Just type the text in and all the we don't need voice actors anymore. But that day hopefully will never come. So for this movie, Oko is voiced by Madigan Kakmar, who is actually experienced in voice acting. If you've heard her in anything, you may have seen, if you've seen Psychic School Wars, and I'm sure all of you have, she voiced Kenji's sister. If you've watched the Talking Train series, Chuggington, which I unfortunately have, she voices the character of Coco. It's not bad, it's just kind of, annoying, okay?
Is it aggressively British?
Well, I mean, this is the English dub of it, but yeah, it is kind of British in its nature. Peppa Pig ruined a lot of cartoons, people, let me tell you. But the thing that I actually know Madigan for is, if you've seen the recent Mamoru Hosoda movie Mirai, she voices Mirai's mom in a flashback sequence where she's basically young mom. And I love that scene because it shows the son meeting his mom when she was his same age, basically acting as rebellious and out of control as he is right now. And that's a great little bit of karma to watch. Go watch that movie if you haven't seen it yet. And voicing Matsuki is Carly Williams. Don't have as many things listed here. She voices Vicky in Grizzly Oril and Elizabeth Blue in Captain Canine, two series that I had not heard of before writing this list down. So,
there's a lot of TV
I
out
will
there.
never get around to all of it. None of us will. We will die never having seen anything. So, where are we going with this? So, Hardy,
yes.
Carly and Madigan, how do they portray the two different sides of how to run a hotel?
I'm going to start with Carly first, because this is the one I'm going to be more critical of.
Interesting.
She's got this way of speaking to where she always... all of her T's are hard, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I was trying to... does that sound like a dialect to you?
I don't know. That's the thing, because there are certain voice actresses who are in anime who all their T's are hard. Like, you can say the word Titanic or Titanic, and there's always that extra emphasis on the T. And I think the way that Carly... I don't know if she does it on purpose to make Matsuki sound more snooty and pomp, but it is definitely noticeable, and it's always been something that's kind of bugged me, to be perfectly honest. Like, if I'm going to say... I'm not always going to put that extra emphasis on a T.
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes I'll say Titan. Like I turn the second T into a D.
Yeah, you wouldn't intentionally say it, the hard T.
Yeah. But with some people, it's like Titan. They always hit the hard T, and I don't know if it's done this way on purpose to make Matsuki sound this very prim, proper little princess type, or if it's done for some reason or another. It is kind of offsetting in this particular character, and so while I like the performance in general, she is by far the weaker of the two. Oko herself took some getting used to, but as the film goes on, I think it's because you spend the majority of the film with Oko, that she just endears herself to you. And some of the things that normally I would find kind of irritating or offsetting become more endearing as the movie goes on, and with repeated watchings. Sort of like her little squeals and when she screams when she sees a lizard, and which is totally iconic at the end of the movie when she unknowingly picks up the lizard and is no longer afraid of it, which is
character development.
Yes, character progression.
Now,
but
tell me if this when I was listening to those screams, those like very childish ways of those onomatopoeia in the movie, it reminded me a lot of Cynthia Martinez. Did that at all sound similar to you?
No, it reminded me of Brittany Karbowski.
Now, see,
especially watching her as Wendy in Fairy Tale, who would kind of have those sort of moments.
Okay, that's a fair comparison too.
Yeah, and so no, I think on the second watching, I was very critical of Madigan watching it in the theater, but upon repeat viewings of the film, I think she's probably, believe it or not, my favorite performance in the movie. So much so that I actually tried to get her nominated for the Dubby fan vote last year.
No way.
Yeah, I included her in my 10. So.
Well, I hope that we hear in her a lot more stuff. And go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope that we that now that she's established herself as Hardy's new favorite female voice actress, I hope she gets a lot more stuff.
I wouldn't say she's my favorite. She's still got a ways to go. She's got a lot to mature, but I see good things in her future.
I'll agree with that. Yeah, I'll take the mic on this because, Madigan's, I was pretty much endured right from the beginning. The way that she acted almost annoyed by her dad near the beginning of the movie made me wonder, like, okay, what kind of character are they going for? Is she going to be like one of those fuddy-duddy, I don't like the old ways, I want to just hang out with my friends kind of personality? But very early on from the movie, like, she instantly is okay with running the inn or learning to embrace the ways that she's been sent into, and doesn't really have much to get over with her parents, with her death right from the beginning, because she seems really almost too perfect. Like one of those kids in movies that you feel like, wow, like I wish I could adopt this kid, or I wish I was this perfect, or I wish my kids were this perfect, and that just is almost wish fulfillment. But Madigan really does pull that off really well without being annoying. Amon, any thoughts also on Madigan's performance?
I mean, I liked it a lot. I thought she played the character really well. Like, again, she sounds very authentic, but I thought she did a good job of actually capturing the character, both in terms of being like, you know, this sort of exciting but anxious girl who's working through some stuff. I can understand why they cast her as the lead. Like, this is, if you're gonna go with like actual child actors, this is the run where all we're like, no, you really need to like get someone who's good at it, because they're the one you're gonna be following around for the next 90 minutes. And I thought she put in a really good performance. Like, she's clearly got good chops, which is not surprising because I don't know if you know this, there's another family connection in this movie.
Oh,
Madigan is Erica Schroeder's daughter.
You're kidding?
Yeah, she is.
No.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Holy
so
cow.
she is, as much as having your parent be another voice actor, it makes you part of a quote showbiz family.
No, I mean, we've
Put
seen that
some air
before.
quotes around that.
I mean, we
Yeah, but there's a difference between being Drew Barrymore,
no,
where literally the past 2 generations of your family are all actors.
that's not what I was thinking of. But thanks for making me think of that. No, I was thinking of like Bryce Papenbrook as another voiceover example.
Yeah, that actually be a more relevant comparison. But yeah, yeah, I think she turns in a really strong performance. Like I agree with Hardy. Like she's probably my favorite in this. I'm looking forward to seeing what else she'll do in the future. She's clearly got good chops.
Drew
Yeah.
Barrymore, like really, Amon?
What?
I don't know. It's just you feel like you had that reference ready to go.
Look, the Barrymores were a big fucking deal for a very long time.
I
Yeah.
mean, I mean,
And the
yeah,
Baldwins?
I think it's kind of lost on us now.
And the Baldwins.
And the Arquettes.
Like,
And the Douglases.
But it's
George Clooney's mom was somebody. Who was that? I'm blanking on it. But yeah, like
the Carrie Fishers and the
exactly.
yeah.
Anyways, what else? I also I enjoyed Carly Williams' performance. To your point, Hardy, my understanding is in a lot of voice acting, they often, when you're kind of like training it, a lot of emphasis is often put on being able to enunciate well. To the point I can remember, like years and years and years ago, I saw or read some review of Midori Days where they pointed out in the dub the guy who plays the lead actor sometimes like slurs his words a little bit. And in that reviewer's opinion, of like, this actually makes him stand out a lot against most voice acting I've heard from this time period.
Well,
where proper diction is emphasized.
Someone
a lot.
who used to do it and still kind of does it, but doesn't do it as much anymore is Christina V. If you go back and listen to a lot of her older dubs, she hits that hard T like all the time. And I like Christina as an actress, but that is one of the more critical aspects I have of her. And so I think if you go back and listen to Madoka or her part in Skullgirls even, it's really noticeable.
Yeah.
And I felt like they're trying to work off a dialect from just whatever part of the country they're from.
Well, that was the thing I was wondering about with, like, even KJ Aiken's part, is, like, I half expect if I flip over the Japanese and knew more about actual Japanese dialects sound, like, I have a half expect it's, like, be like, oh, you're from the country. You talk like you're from the country. In much the same way, she talks like she goes to reform school, which I feel like is... Anyone who quotes Leo Tolstoy and Steve Jobs at that age 100% goes to reform school. Not reform school.
Private school. No,
where you send your daughter to be educated.
No, reform school is if she gets into fights.
Yeah, exactly. She's not going to reform school anytime soon.
Yeah, I think it's kind of insulting that she quotes Steve Jobs because Oko is the actual orphan.
But we like Oko.
That we do. I mean, I was kind of against Matsuki doing all the quotes throughout the whole thing. I thought, is this gonna be like that one character from Handshakers who their entire personality is just quoting famous people? But
I found it believable just because she seems like the kind of child who has been told a lot of things by adults and often will just kind of parrot it back because they're at that age. Where that's their context for the world still.
I suppose. What? I mean, it does end up paying off near the end. Like her entire, she has a giant fucking Beauty and the Beast style library where she finds out just the perfect way to cook for people with low cholesterol needs.
Her family's wealthy,
and yet she doesn't know about Mrs. freaking Dash.
You're assuming they have Mrs. Dash in Japan.
I mean, good lord, this movie would have been over in 15 minutes if they had just tried to Mrs. freaking Dash.
Amon, what kind of beef did she give Oko to use?
I'm blanking on the name.
It was the beef that was named after their hotel. So it's not like Wagyu. It was probably something close to Wagyu.
It was very close to Wagyu A5 beef. If they've got that, I can fully expect that they can import a bottle of 50-cent Mrs. Dash from the American grocery stores.
Not such. They have their own traditional methods of doing it. It's all about the authenticity, don't you know?
I don't care about. I don't think the customers are going to know the difference. Oh, this is so tasty.
If you're going to a Ryokan, you 100% care about that thing.
Yeah, but
if you just want to go to a hotel, you can just go to a hotel.
I mean, their hotel was like posh as fuck. They had like a person playing a guitar over top, like the entire setup had like elevators going up to the 50th floor. Like they are high end ballers. I don't know what kind of drugs they're dealing with, but that family is loaded. Good God Almighty. I got off track there. Carly Williams, I feel like we're kind of divisive on this. The question is, was it an intentional performance, or was it more what Carly just sounds like? And I feel like that was just what she was directed to do. You know, like, I can't imagine that most kids just sound like this all of the time, and I'm sure that you have a very nice inn. Ours has professional-grade water flown in from the Antarctic Circle, don't you know? I have to imagine that they directed Carly to sound like that. And as a contrast, just as a contrast to Madigan, I feel like it does the job well. So whether or not you find it distracting or not, I guess kind of depends on how hammy you like your antagonists in cartoon movies. And with that being said, I think that does that cover all the characters? Did we get through the whole thing in like an hour and a half?
Did you talked about Madigan, didn't you, Noah? Okay.
Yeah.
I think we did.
I want to take her home and put her in my pocket.
You better.
You're gonna arrest me for that.
Yes. Yeah. Noah Clue was later found trying to smuggle lollies in a briefcase.
She's not a lolly. Lolly implies that you're older and look younger. She's actually a little kid.
That makes it worse.
Only if you get caught. No, I'm not going there. No, that's getting cut out. This was she's a sweet character, and we don't get a lot of those, okay? We just don't get a lot of those in movies these days. She's like a Disney princess. OKKO'S Inn, coming soon to Disney+.
No. Don't
Actually,
give them the power. Don't do it, Noah. Don't you...
They're running out of stuff to buy.
Don't you put that evil on me, Noah Clue. Don't you put that on us.
In 5 years from now, all of humanity was just born with mouse ears on. There were no survivors.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
That is
upsetting.
Unlike this movie, which is sweet and adorable. So let's go to our final thoughts to talk about the overall production of OKKO'S Inn. Amon, what you got to say about the overall movie?
What a lovely film. Just such a nice, sweet movie, even for all that goes on in it. I enjoyed this movie. This feels very much like, it's nice. I could show this to my parents. If I had to babysit somebody, I could easily throw this on and we could have a nice hour and a half to ourselves. I think the dub on the whole is really strong. I think it matches the movie really well. I had a lot of fun watching this. It's been a stressful couple of months, and it was nice watching this.
That's sweet. Spaceman Hardy.
Yeah, it is really a feel-good kind of movie that you can watch with your whole family. My family, I can't watch it with because the whole spiritism thing and everything. But But yeah, I think I enjoyed it a lot more on the second viewing than I did originally watching it in the theater. Because to be honest, when I first watched it, I knew nothing about it. I was just basically trying to support as much anime in theaters as possible as I can. So if there's an anime movie that's coming out in Memphis and I have a free night, and preferably if it's dubbed, but even if it isn't, I will try my best to watch it, to go see it, because I want more anime movies to come to Memphis. And yeah, I didn't anticipate buying this until it got picked for the Patreon, and I picked it up with a few other pre-orders. But now I'm glad I did, because I think I enjoyed it a lot more on the second viewing than I did on the first. And it's not my favorite movie that came out in 2018, but I liked it. I liked it quite a bit.
Excellent. And thank you, both of you, for volunteering for this. I knew Amon had to do it because fun fact, ladies and gentlemen, for Christmas last year, I gave him a copy of this movie.
It's true.
And that's how I got my copy of it, too. I ripped the footage from it, which is why I could not watch the sub, because I only ripped the dub version. Not knowing we were going to do this episode, I wanted to watch the movie, and this was a good excuse to finally do that.
So now that you've admitted to piracy on our very own podcast, are you going to go back and buy it?
I did buy it, and then I gave it to a
You
friend.
bought
I
it.
spent money on it. How is that piracy?
Right.
Look, okay, if I was to, say, give a couple of bucks to the shady guy in the trench coat behind the 7-Eleven, then you can reap me over the coals for that. But I paid actual money for this.
All right. Fair enough.
But we'll have our suplex party after the podcast is over. Don't you
Yes.
worry. Yeah. And I will lose painfully, and I will be in a cast. But before we do that, I just want to say that this was also a big surprise to watch because there's, with as many films as G-Kids is licensing these days, because they used to be kind of focused more on stuff from Europe or just non-Japanese or American shores, which I appreciated, and they still do that. But now that they're doing a lot more from Japan as well, it's difficult to keep track of a lot of them. So I was very glad to get a chance to watch OKKO'S INN, not knowing anything about it, and being pleasantly surprised by just how sweet, relaxing, and well-directed it is. Not just in the voice acting, but also like the actual animation direction on it. This is a very fun film to look at. The camera goes in interesting directions. The scenery is very nice. There's always something to look at. I love that kite battle scene near the middle of the movie.
If you have a chance to watch it on Blu-ray, the transfer is gorgeous. The animation really... Madhouse did a fantastic job animating it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, big shout out to Kitaro Kosaka and his team because they definitely put their heart and soul into this. And the dub was a pleasant surprise, too. The experience of watching this in dub reminded me a lot of watching, like, those old pre-internet bubble anime that were broadcast from, like, things that were dubbed in Canada, like Saban Productions, that weren't even tying into a niche. They were just people who came from different backgrounds putting their voices together to put something on screen that you'd never heard of before. This reminded me very much of, like, what it was like watching anime for the first time. So I commend the cast, all the people who put their voices in on this, and especially for a key number of voice actors, I hope we hear quite a few of them in the future. With that being said, if you would like to watch OKKO'S INN, originally this wasn't available streaming anywhere, but very recently, like just in the last week, it just got added to Netflix. So lo and behold, if you would like to watch the film, it is right there on Netflix in both Japanese and English. And there is also the home video release from G-Kids that we talked about, where you can watch it in what Hardy mentioned is a very good Blu-ray transfer. So a couple of different ways to watch the film if you are so interested in doing so.
It might just
Hold
be
on
the sub.
one second, guys. I'm checking to see if it's on Canopy.
I think we looked there and it isn't currently.
Okay.
Yeah,
Possibly
like,
because it's a little too new to have made the jump to like Canopy and services like
Yeah.
that yet.
But that's a good, that's still a good resource.
Yes, you should still Canopy with a K. You should use it anyway.
They have a lot of other
Yeah,
G-Kids movies on there.
They
That
do.
they do.
Yeah, hunt down the ones they have, even ones that are not from Japan. Hunt down G-Kids' other releases.
Like Ernest and Celestine, Secret of Kells, Letter to Momo, Cat in Paris, etc., etc., etc.
All those good ones. Yep. So in talking about us, if you want to follow the Dub Talk Podcast, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're watching us on YouTube, which is Dub Talk Podcast, or you can follow us on Podbean if you're listening to the audio-only version of this. We also have Patreon, which we talked about earlier. We're always looking for new and interesting ways to cover English dubs for anime, and maybe even some non-anime stuff as we've been dipping into alternative stuff recently. So continuously check back. We promise new stuff every single week. We also have an Instagram. We have a Twitch that periodically gets hijacked to play Jackbox. I understand that some of the people on the podcast like to play that a lot. And I suppose we should probably round this out by asking the individual hosts here, what do you do when you're not talking about cute girls running an inn in Japan? Amon.
I'm Amon Dool. You can find me on Twitter at AmonDoolUS. Duel has 2 U's in it. I talk about movies and comic books and Raging Against the Sky. I finally updated my blog after about 3 years of it just laying in waste with an overly ambitious project that I will probably not complete, but let's see how far I can get into it. And I also like music, and I have a song. If I have a dusty old song, a few people would be interested.
I was going to be disappointed if you didn't have a dusty old song ready for us.
Do you want me to do it now or later?
Do it now.
I think we can go ahead and do it now.
All right. So I was a little stumped initially because, it's set in a traditional Japanese inn. Is there anything with there? I know nothing about traditional Japanese music. This is not something I listen to on the regular. But I had an out. The music in this movie is done by a man named Kiichi Suzuki.
Mm-hmm.
And he is something of a name. He was in a apparently fairly well-known Japanese band called the Moonriders, and he does a lot of soundtrack work. For example, he did the music for Tokyo Godfathers, which we just covered. He's done the music for the 2000 live-action Uzumaki movie. He's done a bunch of Beat Takeshi movies, like his Zatoichi movie from the early 2000s and his Outrage movies. Most notably in the English-speaking world, though, he did the music for the game Mother and its sequel Earthbound. So if you're into that. However, I found out a song he had. He has a very fun song called Satellite Serenade he did in the early 90s, which got a remix by British electronica group The Orb. And that's... If you know what The Orb sound like, this will give you an idea of it. I enjoy it because it actually starts out with what sounds like a part of like an educational film that I think is actually describing like a little rural Japanese village like the one you would find in this movie, which I thought was interesting. So go onto YouTube and track down Satellite Serenade, the Transasian Express mix, and you can have 14 minutes of just sort of relaxing 90s electronica music. It'll be a nice time.
Awesome. Satellite Serenade. That does sound like a song from a 90s electronic too. All right. Like right up there with Moon Safari or something like that.
I love it when I give a recommendation. There's just a thundering silence afterwards as everyone wonders what the hell I'm talking about.
I'm sorry. All I know about electronica from that time period is Moon Safari and a little bit of Daft Punk.
Look, Moon Safari is a good album.
It is.
If you're only going to know one.
Not my favorite. 007, is that the name of the group?
Air. They're called Air.
Okay, I was mixing up with some other group. Anyways, yeah. Not my favorite of their songs, but it is a good album.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I going with this? Hardy, what do you do in the world?
I'm Spaceman Hardy. You can find me on Twitter at Spaceman Hardy. I have been retweeting a lot of art and goat pictures, and I like to rant about Aniplex and the anime industry in general every now and then. I'm also a forum moderator and on both the Funimation forums and Funimation Discord. So if you want to come by, hang out with me there, that'd be great.
All right. My name is Noah Clue. You can follow me on Twitter at Noah Clue. I update that Twitter feed fairly regularly in discussions about animation from all around the world. Currently, as of recording this, I am actually involved in the great challenge of 1 like equals show one thing from your animation collection. And at the moment, I'm almost up to 50 right now, so I've got to add a couple more to that countdown list. That's been a lot of fun, showing off stuff from the collection that involves stuff that a lot of people haven't even heard of some of this stuff, so that's always fun. And I have a YouTube channel, which is Journey Traveler, which may get updated if I ever get the free time, but who knows when that will be. It doesn't look like we're getting Hardy back here, so I guess we should probably just close this off as we normally would. So, anyways, thank you all for listening in to this Patreon special exclusive episode of OKKO'S INN. Thank you very much, Julia, for recommending this. Like I said, this was a fun little experiment that I think not many of us expected to be as surprised by it as we were. It's fun when we get to cover those kind of movies on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with that being said, thank you all for coming to visit. Enjoy your complimentary pudding, and please come back to visit us soon. Aloha and otaku on, my friends.
Keep it manly.
Rock on, Boston. Rock on, Chicago.